have you develop that into your codified structured approach to leading teams?
Absolutely. If you can have 3 traits, you can be a successful leader. And the best part about these traits is that you're not born with them. They are completely learned skills. And the 3 skills are humility, ownership, and loyalty.
Is that much of it? That's not much of a change for you, right?
My name is Carey. I used to load bombs in the Air Force, and now I'm a writer, a filmmaker, and an entrepreneur. Through using the post 9/11 GI Bill to go to college, working hourly jobs to pay the bills, and freelancing my way into a career, I've studied what it takes to successfully transition from service to civilian, and that study has become a conversation. On this podcast, I speak to other veterans, successful artists, and entrepreneurs about their transition, what they did well, where they failed, what they learned, and most importantly, how they applied their skills. Episode 86 features Alex Aguilar, a former Army Ranger, currently a firefighter, husband and father of 4, motivational speaker, author, and leadership and fitness coach. We talked about his codified approach to leadership, involving building 3 skills: humility, ownership, and loyalty. Welcome. This is Veteran Made.
Oh, wait, hold on. Was there a delay for you?
Yeah, there was.
But there isn't now.
No, there isn't now.
Cool. All right. I think we just didn't wait enough time.
Okay.
So that's cool. All right. We will jump into it here. I'll start right back over. Good morning, Alex Aguilar. Welcome to Veteran Made.
Hey, morning, brother. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. I'm stoked to have you, stoked to chat about a topic that I feel like is very important that doesn't get spoken about enough. And I'm stoked to dive in with you on it. I'm also stoked to be recording. This is the first podcast in the new house. People have been hearing about the move here on the last couple of weeks of episodes, and we've successfully made the move from Virginia back to Ohio, which is home. And so I'm sitting in my new study and not quite set up yet, but still kind of feeling like it's this. This is the future. This is good. I'm stoked.
Awesome.
So for those who don't know you, would love it if you could give us a brief primer, kind of on who you are, where and when you served, and then we'll jump into our topic.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Alex Aguilar. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California. I was in the 1st Ranger Battalion from 2011 to 2017. Then I spent 3 years doing private military contracting. And after that, I've actually been a firefighter currently since 2020 out here in the Savannah, Georgia area.
Awesome. I love it. What neighborhood in LA did you grow up in?
So I grew up in the Valley. So I spent most of my time in like Glendale, Sherman Oaks, and the whole, the Valley girl scene.
Yeah, no doubt. When I got out of film school, out of the military, out of film school, I moved to LA to work, on the Hollywood side of things before getting into advertising. Family friend lived in Redondo. So I lived in Redondo for 6 months and drove to the Valley for PA work and like all that grunt stuff. And then ended up living in Sherman Oaks for, I think, like 18 months, 2 years. So,
right on. Yeah. All my family that's still out there, they're out in Hermosa now.
Oh gosh, dude, the Tri-City area is the best neighborhood in LA. Everybody loves the West Side, but you got to go Southwest.
Oh yeah,
that's the jam. Yeah, I love it. Cool, man. Well, okay, so you and I are going to talk about something I think a little bit delicate and a little bit delicate, very important. And kind of get a little bit vulnerable with each other, which I think is going to be really great for folks to hear and kind of participate in. So offline, you and I have been having some conversations and really trying to figure out like what we want this episode to be about. And as you and I were talking, I really latched on to this notion that it's important for us to be thinking about ourselves more than we think we should. And we'll probably like dance around some words and terminology. And I think maybe we can probably help each other land on the best way to say this. Mm-hmm. But those of us that have served in, small units, whether they be elite units like Ranger Bat or Special Forces or Special Tactics on the Air Force side, or even like myself on the conventional side on the flight line, working in a 3-man crew, loading bombs and missiles and kind of working within a squadron of weapons troops and working with avionics troops and crew chiefs and all these different organizations within an organization to get a bird in the air to support you all on the ground. We've had this beaten into us, for lack of a better word, and we've been indoctrinated into this selfless approach to being on a team and to leading teams. And that's not untrue, but it is not completely true. in some ways as well. So kind of through your story, I'd love to talk about how we need to focus a little bit on ourselves as a means to build a foundation for leading teams, leading families, leading organizations, and just kind of like leading in general. So not to kind of, give everything away up front, but I do want the audience to be anchored in what it is that we want to talk about. So, yeah, I mean, where do you want to start, man? I mean, should we start with, where should we start?
Yeah, so we can start with just, for me, like a personal development journey and kind of how it got to where it is today and what it evolved into is it was really a lot of times the guys, military veterans on the outside were doing all these awesome things, right? We're serving in the military. A lot of us are husbands, fathers, mothers, wives, and it's like on the outside looking in, everyone's like, wow, look at all this stuff you have going on. You're doing this and that and that and the other, so people get this idea that you're like always showing up. You're freaking killing it in this, you're killing it in that, you're giving 100% effort all the way around. And what really gets lost in translation is we build in that mindset, just like you were talking about that selfless service and this and that our own needs end up getting thrown to the side. And you kind of become like a shell where on the inside, you are not showing up for yourself at all. You're letting yourself down as far as self-fulfillment because you're just so extended into being a member of that team, into being a husband, being a father, a mother, a wife, all those things. And it really, for me, it took like a rock bottom, holy shit, I'm giving a half-ass effort to my family. I'm not showing up as the husband I should be. Like I'm there, but I'm not there. You know what I mean? We may be, a lot of times as veterans in military service, we're home, but we're not home. We're physically there, but mentally we're somewhere else. Our emotions are somewhere else. And it kind of gets drilled into us that stuff it down. Don't worry about it. You know what I mean? Just do what you need to do for your team and your family. You'll be fine. And for me, it was kind of a realization of, holy crap, like I may be here, but I'm not giving 100% to my family. You know what I mean? I'm a shell of a man at this point because I'm so committed to the team and I'm so committed to being a fireman and this and that like I'm not actually being the husband and father and the leader that my family really needs. And it came down to because I never took care of myself first at all, and I feel a lot of us struggle with that is we don't take care of ourselves because we're told it's selfish, no, you don't put other people before yourself all the time. And it really happened to dawn on me that if I really want to be giving 100% of myself to the people I care about, I need to take care of myself first. And it's like the exact opposite of what we're taught in the military, that whole selfless service. To be honest, if you really want selfless service, you need to do a little selfish service, and really you have to take care of yourself and put your mental and your emotional health first before your families. And I know that sounds backwards, but if you really take care of your mental and emotional health, you're going to show up better for the people you care about because you're in a better emotional and mental state.
Yeah, it's the oxygen mask principle, right? if you're on an airplane right, and they tell you as a parent, if the plane's going down or there's cabin pressure or whatever it might be, and you need to get oxygen masks for you and your family, put it on yourself first so that you can be in the best possible position to help those that can't help themselves in that particular scenario. Right. And it's interesting too because it does apply in the military as well. I just think it's harder for folks to see because whether you're in an elite unit or in a conventional unit, you still need to be the best version of yourself. So the best operator that you can be. So you need to be in the best physical shape, mental shape, emotional shape, relational shape that you can. And same thing, loading bombs on a 3-man crew. You need to be, whatever your position is on that crew, you need to be the best version of that as possible because you're 1/3 of a crew and you're expecting the other two to have, their thirds taken care of so that you come together and have a full operational executional unit that can accomplish the mission set. Right. And so it's just not something that I just don't think it's something that gets talked about specifically enough in the military. But for folks that are listening that might think like, well, no, that's not true. It is, because you have to be the best version of yourself, even in those units, for the unit to be the best version that it can be. And obviously, same thing applies on the outside, whether we're talking about a small business or a corporate unit or a family or a firehouse, whatever it might be. It is important that we build ourselves into the best version of ourselves as possible in order to serve those
Right,
other folks.
100%. If we can build ourselves into the best version of ourselves, we can give more 100% of ourselves to the team and to that team effort, and just like the oxygen mask thing, we talk about how in the military it's talked about, but it's not, it is kind of like they tell you in a firefight and someone goes down, you have to eliminate the threat first before you go run out and treat that person so that you don't create two casualties, so they do kind of talk about it, but it's not, it's like overtly in covert terms,
Yeah, exactly. Was there an acute moment or multiple acute moments where you had this realization as you had separated from the military, or was it a series of those moments? Was it a gradual understanding that you came to?
So when I was contracting, I was deploying like 60 on 60. I was spending another 6-7 months overseas, and I really got sucked into the fast adrenaline life. Like all I cared about was the adrenaline, the being overseas, the, making money and the materialistic, and I want this, that, and the other, blah, blah. And I really just completely lost like the sense of what I was really doing it all for and who I really cared about. And it was a real deep realization of almost, losing my marriage and other things of like, I'm nowhere near the person I thought I would be because I put so much value on things that at the end of the day, I didn't need. I put wants above needs, and it really took a toll on my relationship at home with my wife and my kids. And that was the final like straw of I need to do something. This isn't working for me anymore. I'm going to lose all these. And it's kind of like I had a talk with my dad actually. And he was like, a lot of people think that, the riches are the money and the cars and the house. He's like, that's not true. The real riches in life are the children you raise, the marriage you create, like those are your riches and your valuables. And just, you can't lose sight of that. You can't lose sight of the forest for the trees. And that really stuck with me. And that's what it was for me is really placing all my wants above my needs and not showing up at all. Being a shell on the outside, like someone would say, oh, he's doing all this badass stuff. That's awesome. But on the inside, I was lazy. I was selfish in a negative way. I was showing off. I thought I needed these things to impress people that at the end of the day don't care, and that was the big turning point for me of I need to show up as a man, that I'm not leading my family. And that's what my family needs, is a leader. They don't need the items and the toys. They need a leader.
Yeah. There's no more humbling experience than having a conversation with a civilian who doesn't have any military experience or any ties to the military. And they say something like, oh, you jumped out of planes and kicked down doors? Or, oh, you loaded bombs? That's really cool. Like, yeah, it is pretty cool. Okay, next. And they start talking about the next thing, and you're like,
right.
Oh, shit, I built my life and my identity on these things.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just a cool footnote for other people.
Yeah, and it's like I tell guys that when they're getting out of the military, getting out of Ranger Battalion, there's guys, for me, it was like, all right, I've done everything I wanted to do. I feel accomplished of what I've done. I'm proud. I can leave the Ranger Battalion and feel comfortable, where some guys get out too early and then their whole identity is the 3 years, 4 years they spent in the Army for the rest of their life. That's it. That's the whole thing. And I tell veterans all the time, it's like, you have so much life to live after the military and so many gifts to give the world. You can't, that helped form who you are, but it's not the only thing that you are. You need to still branch out and create and blossom.
Yeah, and you're also like, that's not your mission anymore.
Right.
And so those frameworks can inform the way that you operate in the civilian world. And I mean that both professionally and personally and relationally. And that's a great foundation for us to have and unique, right? Because not a lot of people have it. But it certainly can't be the only thing. It certainly can't be the only reference point. So how do you define personally the difference between good selfish and bad selfish in this conversation?
So for me, good selfish is I'm going to take care of my mental, physical, and spiritual well-being so that I can show up for the people I care about. That make sure that when people do need me, I can actually give 100% to them because my cup is full. and then bad selfish is I'm going to place my wants above the needs of the people I care about. That's great, but I really want to do this right now. I'm going to fulfill some dopamine rushes because it feels good for me and neglect the people who need me.
So for you, is it a matter of purpose? Because kind of what I hear is it's the what doesn't necessarily change. The actions don't necessarily change. It's what's driving the actions. That
dude,
focus.
100%, because you can, eat right and work out, right, and do all these things, take care of yourself, right? But if you're doing it just because you only give a shit about yourself or whatever it is, that's completely different than saying, hey, I need to take care of myself so that when my family needs me, I'm there for them. When my friends need me, I can show up for them, and that it really is, the actions are somewhat the same, but it's really the purpose and the meaning behind it, and there's so much purpose that can be derived from self-development for service. You really find the purpose in the service of the people you care about, and it all stems from having a full cup because you showed up for yourself first.
Yeah, I mean, from your perspective, what does it look like? I mean, so this is an observation that I've had about the soft community, which isn't a unique observation. Others have had it, but it's like this. It's a struggle to transition from showing up for your teammates to showing up for your family, and I think it has to do with, part of it is because you did have to show up for your family in some ways when you were performing those tasks in those units. But the family did take secondary priority, and because it had to, right? Because the mission had to come first, because you're serving in a unit like that. There is an element of, no, my brothers have to come first because I have to be ready to go perform something that most people aren't going to have to perform. What does that transition look like for you? How do you frame it, or how have you learned to reframe it, where you're using the framework of showing up for your teammates and brothers as you performed tasks in that unit to, well, now I have to do that for my family? How do you let those frameworks inform the way you do that for your family without it being a one-to-one? Because it can't be a one-to-one. Right. Is that a cool question?
So it's not a one-to-one, because you have to, like, when you're in, the whatever unit you're in and stuff, at the end of the day, you just do your job to the best of your ability. Your teammates have to do their job, and then synergistically, it works together, where when you're the leader of a family unit, you have to do, yes, your job, but that really encompasses a lot more involvement into the other people's job, so to speak, right? So it's not just like when you show up in, when you're in battalion, you're going on training, or you're going on a mission, and you're like the team leader. It's like, okay, I know I have to do this tonight, this, and this, and this, and then I'll do this, and this. With your family dynamic, it's like, okay, this kid, I need to be over here. This kid, I got to do this. And you're really so far spread out, but you're much more intuitively involved into the helping process, as opposed to, working with grown men who have also gone through a selection, who have also are there for the same reasons you are and are putting in 100% effort. It's almost like you don't have to motivate those men as much to put in the effort as sometimes with your, for me, with my kids right now, it's like baseball and things like that in school. You have to be a much more of a motivator and teaching that, because these other men in the unit, they're grown, they know, they've been through hardship, they know perseverance. You have to teach perseverance, and you have to teach resilience and why it's important. And it's really a different dynamic where you're much more involved as the leader of a family unit as opposed to a team leader in the regiment. You know what I mean? You can give a task to the dudes in your team and you're confident they'll accomplish the task. You'll be fine. You know what I mean? You just check for learning. Your family, you really have to give the task, be involved in the task every single step of the way, make sure that the right lessons being learned from failure, from success, all that kind of stuff. So it's much more intuitively involved, like in the daily process.
Yeah, I'd like to focus on family a little bit here, but it is also, I think, important for people to remember that this is true professionally as well. Probably not as true in a firehouse, but if you're working in like a marketing organization or a sales organization, or kind of like, any other typical business output, like, when a senior enlisted retires, or a field grade officer retires, and they're like, or a general officer retires for that matter, they're like, well, I've been in charge of X $1 million of budgets, and X tens of and hundreds of high performing elite operators, and you're like, Yeah, exactly. They were high performing elite operators who already had the motivation and the discipline to do the things that you were asking them to do. That's a very, very different than
Right.
leading an organization of people who don't have that training background, don't have that discipline, don't have that motivation, didn't join the organization to go do crazy things. They joined the organization to make money and make a living and kind
Right.
of do all of that. So the motivation is a lot easier in the military when you're leading, and then when you're leading outside of the military, whether it's in a professional organization or in a family, it is, to use the word you were using, much more dynamic.
Yeah, 100%. And when you're leading, it's much more. I always tell people, like, when you're a leader, if you really want to get the best out of your team, you need to be personally invested in the people in your team. So in the military, as a team leader, you should be personally invested in your guys' lives outside of work, their hobbies, their families, and take part, because if you're personally invested in your team, they're going to be more personally invested in the mission set and the operations that you're asking them to perform. And the same thing goes for, especially in the business world, or like you're talking about the marketing world. And if you're personally, a lot of times if people feel valued and you have personal investment in them, they want to perform much more for you and like be a part of the team because their voice is heard. And the same thing does go for your family too. I mean, it's your family, so you're obviously personally invested in their well-being and stuff, way beyond the military and the corporate world and all that stuff. But it's teaching them that, like, their opinion matters and they have a voice to be heard, and all along those lines. And that's really what I found for me is, like, for my sons, all with playing baseball and things like that, is it's much less motivating, like, because they enjoy playing it, right? So it's, how do I, instead of I'm motivating you have to go practice, you have to do this, it's giving them the mindset of, hey, you do this to get this. You know what I mean? Hey, the more you work now, the better the reward, the payoff is going to be. And just teaching them the lesson of the harder you work, the more you get. The old adage of, I don't believe in luck. I just found that the harder I work, the luckier I got.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And with children, I think, and with sports is a great example. Like, they're just exploring. They're exploring new things.
Mm-hmm.
They're exploring interests. Like, they see, my she just turned 4. And we got her signed up for T-ball. And we were watching the college girls basketball tournament yesterday. And she's like, I want to play basketball. And it's like, my wife and I, my dad was here too, visiting, and we were all kind of chuckling and like, oh, this is cool. She's getting to this age where she's interested in these things, but that interest might fall off after she tries it. So the importance of engaging in those activities at as high of a level as possible for a 4-year-old or a 6-year-old or a 10-year-old is exploration, learning skills, learning experiences, figuring out things that you like, figuring out things that you don't like. And, as fathers and as parents, it's our job to provide as structured an environment as necessary, as safe an environment as necessary, in order to facilitate those learnings, rather than being cadre forcing you through,
Right. Yeah.
a specific selection process.
It's 100%. Cause, like, with my kids and with maybe a sport they tried and didn't like or something, and they're like, I don't like this. And I'm like, that's fine, buddy. You don't have to play it ever again, but you made a commitment for now. So the only thing we can control is our effort. So if you just give 100% effort, and then when it's done, you never have to do it again. But while you're here, you do your best, and that's all you can do. And that's a big lesson I've taught them, is you may not like everything, but if you're committed, you still give 100% effort until it's done.
Yeah. I played lacrosse in 8th grade for 1 year. Absolutely loved and had a great time. Had a great time, did not love the sport, so I never played it again. But, like, I had a great time. People are like, oh, how was lacrosse? Oh, you did lacrosse for 1 year? Yeah, it was great. Well, you don't play anymore? No, I put in effort, had a good time, learned something new,
yeah,
tried it, and I'm good. Kind of like moving on to the next thing. What skills did you leverage? Like, once you had hit your personal rock bottom and had realized that you were bad selfish and wanted to become good selfish, 2 questions. 1, what skills did you leverage? Like, how did you do that? And then secondarily, or maybe primarily, did you recognize there was a good selfish, or were you just kind of starting to stumble forward?
So for me, it was the skills, like, leverage to recognize this, kind of just did a battlefield analyzation. It was like, okay, this is what I've been doing. This is how it makes me feel, and this is where I'm at. That has been unsuccessful. I need a new course of action, a new plan of action to attack the rest of my life and this mission. right? So it's kind of like where you do like an AAR, basically. As I said, this is what I've been doing. This is what's working. This isn't working. How do I fix what's not working to get where I want to go? And as far as for me, what it was then too is I joined a group online for a while, Superhuman Fathers, and that really spurred me on like, okay, I need a little accountability in my life. And I think we're used to, as veterans, we have accountability when we're in the military. You have other guys counting on you that you have to be to a certain standard, especially in the regiment. We have a standard. If you don't meet it, you get released or you get kicked out. So there's always an accountability factor. And in the civilian world, I feel like it's much more rare to really have accountability because you either learn to hold yourself accountable or you join a group that's going to hold you accountable. Because if you're not going to get where you want to do, or a lot of human nature is, I'm going to take the easiest route to get where I want to go. I'm going to do the least amount of work possible to get the same result. And that's just, evolutionary over time. That's survivability, And for me, it was when I joined Superhuman Fathers, that gave me a group that held me accountable and allowed me to do all that introspective thinking, and that's when I really then branched out into what I'm doing now and how I'm living my life now. And it came from finding accountability and having someone hold me accountable. And then from that group external accountability is when I was really able to hold myself accountable. And that's how I was really able to grow and move forward, is self-accountability.
I want to press pause there and go back. One thing that I've talked a lot about on the podcast and we've talked a lot about as a community is that it is fairly simple and fairly easy to be in the military. Granted, some people have to go do hard things, and people die, and those are realities, but they are realities that we sign up for. It is a relatively easy, simple environment to live and work in. Medical is provided, housing is provided, food is provided. Literally everything is provided. All you have to do is show up and go do the hard thing that you've been assigned or that you've volunteered or been selected for and earned. What's also true is that accountability is provided and camaraderie is provided. We lose sight of the fact that when we get out of the military, we expect, we have to learn that all of those kind of physical needs are no longer being taken care of for us. We have to go out and earn them through, jobs and paychecks and insurance and like all those things. But we really do lose sight of the fact that those more relational and kind of borderline spiritual aspects are also missing. And we don't know where to find it in the civilian world.
No, it's 100% true. And when you get out, I know you go through like, you got to go through those classes when you separate or retire. But there really is no real separation class that I found that actually addresses the issues that matter to you. They may be like, yeah, here's a job fair, here's this, here's that. But then you get out, you wake up the next day and it's like, okay, what do I do now? Like it's just instantly shut off. There's no gradual turning down of the button. It's an instant shut off. You're out. It's gone. I remember I had my going away ceremony with my platoon, all that stuff. And then I got in my car, had my plaque, all that. And I drove off base and I was like, what? That's it. Like that's it. They're going to go back to work tomorrow and keep going. And they're not going to miss me in a sense. You know what I mean? Like the engine, the wheel is going to keep turning. You know what I mean? And, but now it's like, when you get out, you have to actively search for that camaraderie or that accountability and those same things that really keep you grounded, because like you said, the military and including the fire service, it's a series of very simple tasks that are hard to perform. That's all it is. As long as you show up in the right place at the right uniform and give 100% effort, you're generally going to be able to be successful, but they don't have that external, that camaraderie, that brotherhood, that spiritual like connection to other human beings. When you're overseas and you're going out on target with guys that you've lived with every single day for months on end, you've trained with, their entire lives, their families, and you guys are going out and you're putting your lives on the line together, that it's an untouchable feeling that then some guys spend the rest of their lives chasing that exact same feeling, and it can lead to a lot of depression, sadness and unfulfillment, because at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to find that same feeling. I don't think it's ever able to be replicated, the camaraderie that you do get in the military. And I think that's what a lot of guys struggle with when they get out, is they admit that it's intangible, that intangible. You can't quite put your finger on what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I think the simple observation there, it's not an easy one, but it is simple, is you can't replicate that because you can't replicate that mission.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's exactly right.
And even those of you that went on to contract, like, you get out of that because, I mean, I've talked to dozens of dudes that have gone on to contract and fucking hated it because it's not the same mission. It's an entirely different mission. It seems and feels and like kind of is high speed, but at the end of the day, it's an entirely different mission. And like, those dudes aren't your dudes in the same way that guys in the battalion are, or guys at the unit are, or guys at whatever.
You're at the end of the day, when you're contracting, you're there to make money. It's just a job.
Yeah.
You have fun and you make friends and you do fun stuff. And, I still talk to guys I contracted with, of course, but it's a much different dynamic than when you're actually in the Army or the military, whatever branch. Dude,
totally. I mean, there were, say this delicately, but there was a mission that happened right after I separated, and my unit was the one that loaded the bombs for that, and they went and dropped a bunch. And I was so excited to be out of the military, but once that hit the news and I knew that it was my guys and gals that were over there doing that, I was like, shit, I missed that.
Like that FOMO, you know what I mean? That fear of missing
FOMO,
out, and
FOMO cube.
It's real, man. It is real. That whole, exactly, man. It's real.
Yeah. And like, regardless of the politics of it all, it's like, it's still, that's my job. That's my brothers and sisters that are over there doing that. And I missed that. Like, not only did I miss it in the sense that I missed it in that I was not a part of it. And then I missed it in the, like, oh man, I missed that. Like, best job I
It's almost like you felt like you were letting him down by getting out,
Well, yeah, yes. And also a little bit more selfish than that. I was like, well, no, I enlisted to be a part of shit like that. So yes, I did feel like I was letting them down. 50% of it was selfless, but 50% of it was that bad selfish. I'm like, no, I wanted to be the 3-man driving that jammer, pushing that bomb up onto that fuselage and knowing that it was going to take off and get dropped, like that was, it's an interesting dynamic, but really at the end of the day, like the simple task, it's not an easy task, but the simple task is to realize that the feeling that you're chasing cannot be attained because you're no longer on that mission. You are on a different mission. So therefore you need to figure out different feelings to chase, different purposes to live.
It's finding, you need to find fulfillment in new endeavors, and that's what I tell people getting out. I say, have a 6-month plan. I don't mean you don't need a job right off the rip. You don't need this, but you need to have for like a 6-month plan of what you're going to do with your life for 6 months to make that adjustment, so you can start looking for fulfillment in things outside of the military, and for me, it's really being a fireman and working at the firehouse. That camaraderie, that brotherhood, it's about as close as it's ever going to get for me. But it's a very different dynamic. And I really enjoy that. And a lot of veterans ask me, how's it being a fireman? And I said, the big difference is that you're playing defense the whole time. When you're in the Army, you're on offense. Now you're just on defense, and you're not actively part of the emergency anymore. You're just helping someone else's emergency. And, but there's that camaraderie and that brotherhood. So it really I found purpose in that. And then I really found with the whole social media thing, a lot of purpose in just sharing a message and being unafraid to, like, hey, I have something I believe in and I want to share it with the world. I don't care if people judge me or laugh at it or do this. I want to put this out there. And that made me feel really fulfilled and like, okay, I like this. I enjoy putting a message out into the universe. I'm glad for social media in a sense that it's a free way to spread a positive message or a belief that I have, or help someone who needs help. Or maybe people send me messages all the time like, hey, I'm getting out of the military. How is it being a fireman? What do you suggest when you get out? What helped you? What didn't work? And stuff like that. So I'm like, look at, because of technology, all these people that, because I put a message out there, that I can help random people I'll never meet in real life, but maybe I can help one thing, you know what I mean? And for me, and that's a big fulfillment for me. And I never would have found that if I hadn't just put myself out there and tried something new, you know? So it's the veteran, you have to try new things and see what does it for you. And don't be afraid to be laughed at, or, you know, in the military, we're very big on like, I'm macho and no one makes fun of me. I'm the big man. I'm the boss. I'm an alpha male, this and that. And now for me, it's like, dude, I don't care if people make fun of me, laugh at me. Who cares? You have to let that part go. And just, if you have something you believe in, or you have something you want to do, the worst that can happen is you fail and you try something new.
Yeah. And also another way I think that we can utilize a framework from the military is, I'll tell a story from a deployment that I was on. We had this buddy, my unit, we played a lot of spades, and my buddy was really bad at spades. Everybody was making fun of him for it. And he got pretty down on himself, and we lived in the same B hut, at Bagram. And so we're kind of walking back from the bus from work one day, and he was like really down. I'm like, "Why are you down?" He's like, "Dude, everybody's making fun of me." I'm like, "Yeah, cause they love you." Like,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
like, I named a couple people in the unit that we didn't really talk about, and he's like, "Oh yeah, okay, cool, it makes sense." So same thing on the outside, just like, yeah, people like humor and getting made fun of, and kind of like leaning into the silly, goofy side of what makes you unique as a person, is a good indicator that you're being properly social, you know, to be a little clinical about it.
Yeah, especially in the military and the fire service, we're like, hey, if we're making fun of you, that means we like you. If we stop talking to you, that's when you need to worry about it.
That's right. That's exactly right. So how did you operationalize the accountability that you found through that group, and how did you operationalize it for yourself, and really attach and integrate with it? And then you obviously started to build a business kind of off of some of the ideas. So question one, how did that go for you personally, acutely, initially? And then over time, how did you operationalize it for others as you realized you wanted to serve in that capacity?
Right. So what I did with that group, and basically is I took the exact same way I approach leadership in the military from my leaders, is this is what I really liked. This is what I didn't. I'm going to keep the stuff I liked, and I'm going to try and change the things I don't, as I apply it to like my team and like guys that I was raising under my leadership and tutelage. Right. And it was really for that group, the same as I got so much out of it. And then at some point of it was like, okay, how do I take some of this and apply it to like a different subset of people, or like veterans, or, you know, tactical athletes, so to speak, that's really like honed in for that type of thing. And then that's when I really like branched into doing what I do, where I have fitness coaching online, and I was working one-on-one with guys as far as just like leadership and personal development, but all of it was tactical athletes, veterans, firemen, policemen, you know, in that one sense, because I feel like you need to be part of that community to understand the community and to help that community. And it is hard for someone who's not, you know, a veteran to really understand how your brain's going to work, or what they're really searching for, the experiences they went through. And it's always nice to have someone who's in that community give you that ear and that shoulder. And then from there, it was like, okay, this is fantastic. How about what other messages what other groups of people can use lessons in leadership and teamwork? And that's where it really branched into now, like speaking to athletic teams and reaching out into the corporate world on, hey, these are lessons in leadership and teamwork from extremely high stress situations, you know, being shot at, being in house fires, being in extrication, CPR, all these very high stress situations. These are the lessons learned that allowed myself and leaders I had to be successful. These are what didn't work. This is how we built successful teams, and really spread that message. That now that's like my biggest goal in life, is to share as much as possible how you build successful teams and how you become a positive leader, you know. And for me, the biggest aspect of a good leader versus a bad leader is that a good leader is going to foster more leaders. You know, a bad leader is going to get the job done, but they're just going to have followers or people to do the work. A good leader is going to create leaders, and then that message just continues to spread, kind of like that pyramid.
Yeah, it's the idea of decentralized command, right? Like that's the thing I think most people don't realize in the military. We don't and this is a refrain people have heard me say it, and I'll continue to say it, is people think that we are rigid adherents to rigid structures with rigid outcomes. And really, at the end of the day, we are competent operators within a flexible hierarchy that that creates the right kind of output for any given mission set. And so I think bringing that approach to leadership into the civilian world is really helpful, especially in the corporate structure, as that starts to adjust and change with the democratization of the workplace now, kind of across the board. Like,
Right.
no longer are you working your way up at Ernst and Young from, junior entry level employee all the way up to partner over the course of a 25-year career. You're jumping to different firms. You're jumping back and forth. You're kind of, doing different
Right.
things.
Yeah. It's almost like everyone's a freelance artist these days. And that's just the nature of how it's evolved, so
Yeah,
it is
that's
what
exactly
it is.
right. What, so did you like codify or kind of build a curriculum as you started coaching and teaching, and then have you developed that into something that is your curriculum and kind of like your codified structured approach to leading teams?
Right. Absolutely. So for me, it comes down to I teach, and when I speak, it's that all leaders that I've ever worked with that have been successful, yes, they've had numerous traits. They're people. They're great at communication. They're people persons. You know what I mean? Like, they're great at all these things, but it really boils down to that if you can have 3 traits, you can be a successful leader. And the best part about these traits is that you're not born with them. They are completely learned skills. And that's the 3 skills I relate to leadership are humility, ownership, and loyalty. And then when I talk to people, I really delve into how each one can apply to leadership. For example, if you're on a sports team, right, and let's say you're on a baseball team, and you can't do the shortstop's job if you're the first baseman. You just can't. All you can do is your job to the absolute 100% best of your ability, and have faith and trust your teammates going to do the same. And ownership, then, in that aspect of, like, you make an error, you do something wrong, everyone can say, hey, my bad, I messed that play up. Everyone can do that. And that goes for anything in the world. But real ownership would be, hey, I messed that play up. I'm going to take extra of that exact play in practice to make sure I get it down right. It doesn't happen again. In the corporate world, hey, I messed his numbers up. The spreadsheet was a little off. I'm going to make sure I go back through every spreadsheet I do from here on out and double tap a day before I actually turn in to make sure it doesn't happen again. So the real ownership in a good leader isn't just my bad, guys. Hey, but it's, hey, I messed up. Here's how I'm going to fix it to prevent it from ever happening again. And I teach, and it's those 3 traits. And then we get into, team building and how you are a successful team, and how you, I teach guys about how you can trust your teammate and how they can trust you. And it's all based upon effort, personal investment, and things like that.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, humility is only, and I've struggled with this my entire life. I was really cocky and I was really arrogant when I was young, and then I got really cocky, and I'm still a little bit cocky, but hopefully it's more like operationalized, and I have more self-awareness about it now, turning 36 years old than I did when I was, turning 26 years old. But humility is, so I would waffle, and I would kind of, like, my wife calls it pendulum. Like, I would pendulum swing from, like, oh, okay, I'm being arrogant, to, like, now I'm going to be super fucking humble. And it's like, well, no, that's false humility. And you're utilizing kind of like weakness and passivity as a way to mimic humility, instead of being functionally humble and understanding that, hey, maybe you made a mistake, or you can't do everything. And back to the battalion or back to the flight line, you shouldn't do everything, right? This idea that, like, if you're a breacher on a team, or you're a 3-man on a load crew, like, you can't do the 1-man and the 2-man's job. Like, you can't do the sniper's job.
Right.
Like, not only can't you shouldn't. And so that kind of functional humility of understanding the role that you play within an organization or within a family, and being excellent at it as best as you can, I think is something that probably doesn't get talked about enough.
No, 100%. I know some people, when I talk about humility and humble, they're like, I don't mean don't be proud of your accomplishments by any means. You should be very proud of your accomplishments. You should hold yourself in high regard for the things you've done. What I mean is, you give credit where credit's due. If you're a team leader and you're asking your team to perform a mission that places their life in danger, whether it's training or whatever, and it goes really well, as the leader, to be honest, you didn't do much, you know what I mean, on the actual mission. Your job is just to make sure your team has the right information, they're in the right place, and that they've been trained to the standard to be successful. They're the ones who actually perform. So they're the ones who get the credit for the success of the mission, you know. And it, for layman's, for people outside of the military, you always see when they always interview the quarterbacks and the running backs on a football team, right? But the first thing they do is like, I want to thank my O-line blocking for me, because they're not blocking. They don't have holes and they don't have protection unless the O-line, who are the thankless guys, are doing their job. So the humility is, I'm going to give thanks to the guys who made it possible for me to be successful, you know. And I tell guys, think of people with their name on the top of skyscrapers. And I know that old saying of, I pull up my bootstraps and I did it all myself. At the end of the day, your name didn't get put on the top of the skyscraper alone. It did require the work of other people. So remain humble and recognize and thank, you know, I want to thank the people that allowed me to be successful and give me the opportunities. And that's what I mean by humility, is you give thanks to the people who helped you. And don't be afraid to say, hey, this guy went above and beyond for me. I want to give him a special accreditation, you know, special thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it also informs you taking ownership, like the next tenet that you have, right? Like that informs you taking ownership over your role. And then the ability to thank somebody else or understand their contribution is that you trust that they have ownership of their role. And it's not just the making mistakes one is a good example, but it's not just that. It's my dad teaches this, has taught this for years, like almost my whole life, is that everybody within an organization, large or small, is responsible for their 20 square feet of that organization, of that organization's culture, and therefore the output of that organization, whatever type it is, right? And so if you're responsible for your 20 square feet, you have humility to understand that that's the only portion you have ownership of. Therefore, you need to own that space as much as you possibly can and work towards competent outputs that you're responsible for, and then having the humility to understand that everybody else is doing the same thing. And so the collective output is what drives, is driven by
the overall success, you know,
humble and taking ownership. How does loyalty play into it for you?
So loyalty is, the way I describe it is, there's different tiers of it. And if you're a good leader, you're going to be loyal to the people who are sacrificing their time and effort for you before you're going to be loyal to the organization you work for. And what I mean by that is, you need to be the buffer. So as a team leader, squad leader, platoon sergeant, whatever it is, you are the buffer man between the chain of command and the guys on the ground putting in the work for you, right? And if you have put them in the position to be successful and they've done everything right, and the chain of command has a problem with it, your job is to go to bat for your guys. You're loyal to those guys because they did the right thing. I'm not talking about if they do the wrong thing and make, you know, morally wrong choices. As long as they are doing the right thing, you go to bat for your team. You're loyal to them because they're the ones who are making those sacrifices. They're the ones who are working and all that stuff. You know, I always describe it as, in the fire service, I'm going to be loyal to the crew before the department, before the fire service itself. You know, I could transfer anywhere and be a fireman. You know, I mean, you don't have to be a fireman at your one department. And a lot of people talk about, well, when do you define loyalty to an organization? And loyalty to an organization for me is, okay, if I stay here and I continue to promote and move up the ranks, am I going to be able to actually put into effect actionable change? Am I going to be able to actually improve things that need to be improved? Is my voice going to be heard? Is it valued? And am I going to be able to actually leave this place better than I found it? We're always told that in the military, right? You leave everything better than you found it. And if the answer is yes, then that's a good position. That's a good organization to stay in and move on. If the answer is unequivocally like, no, this is the way we've always done it, it's the way it's going to be, that for me, that I don't have to remain loyal to that organization, in the sense of, I can't leave it better than I found it. It's in the old way of thinking, this is the way we've always done it, kind of protrudes through. So that's when you really question, like, at what point are you loyal to yourself and the profession before the organization? You know, I can be, for a fireman, you can be a fireman anywhere. You know, you doesn't have to be at one specific department. If you, for a marketing agent and you're a freelance person or whatever in the corporate world, whatever your job is, right? And if you are, you know, at what point are you more loyal to yourself and your team than you are to the organization? And that's a big question everyone faces, and you're going to have to at different phases and stuff like that. But the loyalty really for me is I'm loyal to the guys putting in the blood, sweat, and tears beneath me and next to me before the guy who I only see once a week to check in. How's everything going?
Yeah, that's right. Another thing my dad has taught over the years is leadership is earned through the person, not granted by the position. People are always going to follow other people, and leadership is a heart-to-heart, mind-to-mind endeavor. It is not the function of a hierarchy.
No, 100%. And it's like a lot of people think that like, well, I need to be at a certain level to be considered a leader. Not anyone can be a leader. The brand new guy can lead his team by showing them something new they've never seen before, and they all try it and be like, oh, that works a lot better than the way we did it. Or then, you can be a leader by being the brand new guy, raising your hand and saying, I have an idea. You know what I mean? And a good leader above you is going to say, well, let's hear it and let's try it. You know what I mean? Like, if you're a good leader, you want ideas fostered in your team. You want people pitching those ideas, and you want to find new ways to be, quick, safe, and effective in accomplishing the mission.
Yeah, that's right. I think the biggest, most underrated skill that military veterans bring to the civilian workforce is the ability to lead up and down a chain of command. Most corporate types, those that went to college, did some internships, and worked their way up within an organization, never actually learned to speak to other humans as humans. And it's this thing that people, I think it's something they don't, like civilians and people who don't have touch points with the military, understand that, yeah, there might be chevrons on a sleeve or stars on a chest or a shoulder, but if you stand at attention or stand at parade rest and utilize the right vocabulary words that you're taught in basic or indoctrination or selection or whatever it might be, you can have a conversation with a 4-star general as an E1 enlisted if you do it right. And that translates to the corporate world, or it translates to small businesses. Can't tell you the number of times that I've been in conversations with an ad agency or a production company. They're like, oh my gosh, the CEO is showing up. And I'm like, great, the CEO is showing up. What a wonderful opportunity to have a conversation with another human being and show this person what we are doing as different units within the assigned budget or project or parameters, mission set, use whatever word you want to use that they've allowed us to do,
No, 100%. I think you're spot on with that, as far as it does allow you kind of that freedom of maneuver, that you're adaptable. You can speak to different levels of people based upon their experience, kind of adapt the way and how you speak in relation to where they are on that food chain, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that's right. All right. I mean, I think that's as good a place as any to kind of wrap things up. I definitely want to do this again. I think you and I have lots of conversation to continue to mine. And rather than do a Joe Rogan 3-hour episode right now, I think we'll probably break it up. And I'll have you back and we'll chat some more. I want to go into more detail on some of these specific things. I think we got to a really great place. So if you're open to it,
Absolutely.
I want to have you back a couple more times.
No, 100%, man. I really enjoyed it, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, no doubt. Where can folks find you right now? Where do you want to drive traffic? What can I tag and collaborate with?
So everything for me right now is done through Instagram, and it's just Alex Aguilar _TRM. And that's my handle. That's where, my links are all in my bio, and that's where guys can sign up for the fitness training and different things like that. Anything they're looking for, all the answers are going to be right there. Amazing.
Yeah, I'll tag you and collaborate with you on those posts here next week, which is when this is going to go live. All right. I end every episode with an open-ended question. What is on your heart and your mind for our community right now? Could be a piece of advice, something you want to get off your chest, or something you want to reiterate that we've already talked about today. But Alex, what's on your heart? What's on your mind?
There is numerous opportunities for wealth and abundance in the universe for the veterans, or for the people who feel like their purpose is over because they're no longer a soldier. You can be such a service to your community. And to be honest, our community needs more veterans to step up and be leaders and speak their minds and be more free. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there and really go for something and find, that purpose and that abundance that's out there for the taking, and there's more than enough for everybody. So just don't be afraid. If you feel like you want to do something, go for it, unabashed, 100%.
Well said, brother. Couldn't agree more. All right, brother. Until next time. Appreciate you.
All right, thank you so much, man.
All right, later.